A lonely billionaire decides to hold an unusual test with all the single women in town to choose his new wife. But when he notices his maid among the candidates, a shocking detail makes him fall to his knees, begging,
"Marry me, please." "Oh, my dear Veronica, how much I miss you,"
murmured Mark, the powerful billionaire, his voice choked as he held in his trembling hands the portrait of his late wife. That man, owner of one of the largest auto parts companies in the country, remained alone in the vast office of his corporation. The room was surrounded by glass walls, decorated with luxurious furniture, but at that moment, everything seemed empty. Mark had fortune, prestige, and power, yet loneliness corroded his soul. His gaze lost in the portrait transported him back to a past that would never return, to the days when he smiled beside Veronica. The silence was broken by knocks at the door. The businessman hurried, placed the portrait carelessly on the desk. His voice came out muffled,
"Come in."
The door opened slowly, revealing William, the company's CEO, his right-hand man and longtime friend. William's sharp eyes quickly noticed the poorly placed portrait on the desk, still betraying the longing that consumed the billionaire.
"Thinking of her again, aren't you, my friend?"
William said, approaching with a faint smile. Mark remained silent for a few moments, trying to hide the tightness in his chest. Taking advantage of the pause, the CEO returned to a subject he had been pressing for a long time.
"Mark, don't you think it's time to move on? To open your heart to a new love? It's been over 5 years since Veronica passed away. And honestly, I believe she would want to see you happy again."
The billionaire sighed, weary. His voice came out heavy. He said he couldn't even consider the idea of another relationship. He explained that his attention was divided between the company and his mother, Mrs. Constance, who was battling a terminal illness and needed him more than ever. At that moment, William pulled up a chair and sat beside his friend, looking at him intently. He spoke in a tone that sounded concerned.
"Man, there will always be responsibilities. The company will never stop. And as for your mother, I'm sure she would also want to see you well, married again, surrounded by children. How long will you keep denying yourself a life? Besides, you know you can count on me. I'll take care of the company. I'll hold things together. Seriously, Mark. I'm tired of seeing you like this, always downcast, drowned in sadness. You need to be happy again. You need to love and be loved."
William's words echoed inside the billionaire's mind. They were harsh, but they carried a truth hard to ignore. Since Veronica's death and his mother's illness, his life had turned into a gray routine, without dreams, without prospects. A man who once dreamed of having children and expanding his horizons now limited himself to staring at old photographs, caring for his mother, and burying himself in work. Discouraged, the powerful man let slip.
"Yeah, maybe you're right."
William's smile spread immediately. He pulled a wallet from his pocket, took out an elegant card, and handed it to his friend. Mark frowned in confusion until the CEO explained enthusiastically,
"It's an invitation to a party at the mansion of that private jet company owner. I got 2 invitations. It's tonight. Let's go together for old time's sake. You need to clear your mind, and maybe even meet someone interesting there."
Mark held the invitation with hesitant hands. It had been years since he last attended a party. His social life was limited to monotonous business meetings or his mother's hospital visits. The idea of being among people laughing, dancing, living felt distant. Still, he accepted the invitation, which made his friend smile triumphantly. The CEO left the room satisfied, leaving the billionaire alone, motionless for a few moments. Mark once again faced the portrait of his wife, his choked voice echoing in the emptiness.
"Is it really so, Veronica? Has the time come to start over?"
Meanwhile, on the lower floors of the same building, a completely different scene was unfolding. A young woman, her eyes shining with wonder, looked around as if she had stepped into another world. It was Madeline's first day of work at the company, and her heart overflowed with emotion. After months of hardships and closed doors, she had finally secured a job as a cleaner in Mark's vast empire. With a cloth in hand and timid steps, she allowed herself to be enveloped by the grandeur of the place. The shiny floor reflected the company's magnificence, and Madeline couldn't hold back the thought that escaped her lips.
My God, how can someone have so much money to build something like this?
At that very instant, the unexpected happened. A strong bump nearly made her fall backward. When she looked up, she saw before her a man with an impeccable appearance, but whose white shirt was now stained with coffee. It was William, his eyes filled with fury. His voice cut the air like a blade.
You idiot! Don't you watch where you're going? Look what you've done to my shirt and wasted my coffee.
Startled, Madeline clutched her chest and began to apologize, her voice trembling with nervousness.
Sir, please, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you.
But William didn't lower his tone. On the contrary, his arrogance dripped from every word.
Didn't see me? Are you blind by any chance? Because as far as I know, we don't hire any blind people here.
The young woman swallowed hard, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. She explained, her voice quivering, that it was her first day at work, that she had been distracted only because she was admiring the luxurious building. Her eyes still sparkled with awe at all that grandeur.
Spare me the excuses. If it's your first day, that's when you should be paying even more attention. I'll need to have a serious talk with HR about their hiring choices.
Fired the CEO, his voice dripping with arrogance. Madeline's heart raced. A chill ran down her spine at the thought of being fired before even starting properly. Her eyes welled up and she pleaded, almost crying,
Sir, for God's sake, I really need this job. Please don't fire me.
William narrowed his eyes, satisfied with the new employee's desperation. Then, with a brusque gesture, he reached for the badge hanging on her chest and grabbed it without ceremony. His lips curved into a cynical smile.
You're lucky I'm in a hurry,
He said, reading the name written on the badge.
Madeline, isn't it? Very well, I'll make sure to note that down. The next mistake, and you're out.
Without giving her time to respond, the billionaire's friend tossed the plastic cup, still with coffee remnants, onto the floor. His voice echoed cruelly through the hallway.
Now clean up this mess you made, you pig. When I come back through here, I want this floor shining.
The maid couldn't react. She just lowered her head, feeling the shame burning on her cheeks. With a choked voice, she whispered softly,
Yes, sir. I'm sorry again. It won't happen again.
The company's CEO didn't even bother to reply. He turned his back in haste and walked away, leaving only the trail of his arrogance behind. Madeline immediately crouched down to start scrubbing the stained floor, tears threatening to fall. As she scrubbed hard, she murmured to herself in an almost inaudible whisper,
I really am so clumsy. I need to pay more attention. If I lose this job, I don't know what will become of me.
Determined not to give any reason to lose this opportunity, she kept scrubbing until the floor reflected the lights above. She had no idea who that man was, who had treated her so harshly. But one thing was obvious. By the way he dressed and the authority in his tone, he certainly held a high position in the company. As she was still focused on her work, an unexpected detail caught her attention. A hand appeared beside her, picking up the discarded cup still lying on the floor. Madeline quickly looked up and found herself facing another man. He too was elegant, in an impeccable suit appearing about the same age as the previous one, but his gaze conveyed something different. A silent melancholy, as if he carried the weight of an old sorrow. It was Mark. Startled, she tried to stop him.
No, sir, please, let me take care of it.
She said, reaching for the cup, but he was faster. He tossed the trash into the bin without a second thought.
Come on now. It's nothing.
His voice was calm, almost affectionate. Then, leaning slightly, he observed the young woman and asked,
Are you new here? I've never seen you before.
Madeline took a deep breath, still nervous, and answered,
It's my first day at work. And clumsy me, I've already spilled coffee on the floor.
The billionaire smiled sincerely. Different from the cold tone she had received minutes earlier, he said,
It happens. Don't worry.
Placing his hand lightly on her shoulder, he added gently,
Well, have a great day. And welcome to the company.
An unexpected warmth filled Madeline's heart. Her lips curved into a shy smile, and she thanked him.
Thank you, and have a great day yourself, sir.
Mark walked away with firm steps until he passed through the automatic doors, which opened silently for him. Madeleine followed him with her eyes, not knowing exactly why, but she couldn't help the admiration that bloomed in her chest. She murmured to herself, almost enchanted.
What a polite man, and very handsome. Totally different from that other one who bumped into me earlier.
Shaking her head, she returned to her work, determined not to get distracted again. She could never have imagined that the man who had just won her sympathy was, in fact, the owner of the entire empire. A few minutes later, Mark was already leaving the company to head to Franciscan Hospital, one of the largest in the country. His steps were quick through the corridors until he reached the room where his mother, Mrs. Constance, remained hospitalized. Sitting beside the bed, he held the fragile lady's hand and asked tenderly,
Mother, how are you feeling?
The elderly woman, frail, smiled with effort. Her voice was soft, but it carried unconditional love.
Oh, my son, as well as life allows. But I want to hear about you. How's my big boy? Any different plans for today?
The billionaire sighed, looking down, and confessed,
Nothing new, Mother. The same as always, work. I'll be back later to spend the night here with you. William invited me to a party. He keeps insisting I should find a girlfriend, marry again, go out more. But I'm not in the mood for that. I think I'll just call him and tell him I'll spend the night here with you. We can watch one of those drama movies you love. What do you think?
Mrs. Constance, however, shook her head firmly, her eyes misty with concern for her son.
Absolutely not, my son. You're going to accept that invitation. And I'm not asking, I'm telling you.
She paused, coughed lightly, and continued, determined.
I'll be fine, don't you worry. In fact, I'm thinking of asking Marietta to spend the night here with me. We need to catch up. William is right. You need to enjoy yourself. The last thing I want is to leave this world and see you in this state, alone, lonely. It's long past time for you to start your life over, my love. If not for yourself, do it for me. I want to leave in peace, knowing my son will be all right.
Mark tried to argue, squeezing his mother's hand tenderly.
Don't say that, Mother. You're going to be fine.
But Mrs. Constance, always firm even in her frailty, only smiled serenely and replied,
My son, we both know I won't be leaving this hospital bed. And you know what? It's all right. I've already made peace with it. I've lived a long life, enjoyed it alongside the people I love. It's time for me to be reunited with my Sebastian and our dear Veronica. But before that, I want to see you happy here. Listen to this old lady's request. Or will I have to give you a spanking myself?
She laughed softly, joking, as if she could still turn pain into lightness. Despite his teary eyes, Mark let out a sincere laugh. That simple humor of his mother's always disarmed him. He squeezed her hand affectionately and said, moved,
All right? I promise. I'll try to be happy. I'll try to find a new love.
Mrs. Constance's smile lit up the hospital room. For her, that was the greatest gift her son could give. Meanwhile, in a distant neighborhood, far from the imposing luxury buildings, a car parked in front of a modest house, its orange paint already worn by time. It was William's vehicle. He opened the rusty gate, stepped inside, and walked into the small living room. There, sprawled on a worn-out sofa, was a blonde woman of about 35. Her eyes were glued to the television until she noticed her brother's presence. She stood up quickly and spoke with irony.
Oh, so the handsome one finally decided to show up.
The CEO smirked and replied,
It's not easy running one of the biggest companies in the country, sis.
The blonde scoffed, crossing her arms impatiently.
Oh, give me a break, William. I know very well you don't really do anything. You just boss people around.
She moved closer, her eyes filled with anxiety and expectation.
But I bet you didn't come here to talk about work. Spill it out. Did you find me a rich bachelor yet? Because I'm getting fewer and fewer modeling jobs. I'm aging, and if I don't snatch a millionaire now, I never will. You promised to help me.
This woman was Ruth, William's sister, a true social climber, a model past her prime, always living off appearances and schemes. Throughout her life, she never had scruples. Her dream was simple and dangerous. Marry rich, secure her golden ticket, and live surrounded by luxury. In the past, she had helped her brother in his shady dealings. Together, they forged diplomas and certificates that opened doors for William to climb into top positions in major companies. In return, he had promised her a golden future. He would find her a wealthy man to trap so she could guarantee her princess life. William grinned wickedly, his eyes gleaming with malice.
I didn't just find a millionaire, I found the millionaire. Actually, a billionaire. Remember I told you about my boss, Mark? He lost his wife a few years ago. Well, I've been working on him for months, telling him he needs to move on, find new love. And finally, he took the bait. He just called me confirming he'll go to a party with me tonight. He's lonely, with his mother sick. An easy target. If you manage to marry him, sis, we're set for life.
Ruth had heard of Mark, even though she had never seen him in person. The moment she heard her brother's words, her eyes gleamed with ambition. In her mind, a future began to take shape. Expensive dresses, sparkling jewelry, luxurious trips, and the princess life she had always dreamed of.
But how do I get into this party, William? Tell me now,
She asked, nearly breathless with anticipation. With a triumphant air, William pulled an identical card from his pocket, the same type he had given Mark. The paper shimmered under the dim light of the room.
I told him I had 2 invitations, but in reality, I have 3. I'll sneak you into this party, and you, sis, will seduce that fool Mark. This whole empire will be ours.
The two of them looked at each other, partners in their sinister plan, and burst into loud laughter, like hyenas celebrating prey about to fall into their trap. That very night, though his heart ached to leave his mother alone in the hospital, Mark gave in to her request. He went with William to the party, unaware that a devious plan was being woven against him. The mansion's lights sparkled, and music echoed through the halls filled with elegant guests. Mark tried to cheer up, forcing a few smiles, while William, ever calculating, observed every move, waiting for the right moment to introduce his sister. When the billionaire stepped away to use the restroom, the CEO discreetly pulled out his phone and typed a quick message to Ruth, who was already seated at a distant table, watching everything. "Now," read the text. The woman caught the order immediately. She rose with rehearsed grace, crossed the ballroom, and in a perfectly staged move, bumped into Mark on purpose. A glass of wine spilled, splashing onto the white dress she wore. The act was flawless. It seemed as though Mark was to blame for the accident.
Oh, please forgive me.
He said at once, horrified at the thought of ruining a lady's evening. In a gallant gesture, he removed his own blazer and draped it over her shoulders, covering the stain. Ruth smiled sweetly, feigning innocence. Within moments, she was already seated at the table with Mark and William, chatting as if she had stumbled into the situation by chance. She introduced herself as a model, but lied shamelessly about the direction of her life. She claimed she was leaving the career behind to devote herself to agriculture, saying she had a passion for working the land. It was a carefully planned detail. She knew very well that Mark owned a tractor company and wanted to impress him. The conversation flowed smoothly. Mark, lonely and emotionally fragile, allowed himself to be carried away by the carefully calculated charm of that woman. By the end of the night, even without staying close to him all the time, Ruth left certain she had left her mark. Later, in a secret meeting with her brother, she celebrated aloud.
He's already hooked. And now I'll make sure to bump into him again, like it's pure coincidence. Leave it to me, bro. Mark is going to fall head over heels for me.
The next morning, before even heading to the company, Mark stopped by the hospital to visit his mother. Mrs. Constance was a little weaker than the day before, but her eyes still shone with the same tenderness. As soon as her son walked in, she brightened with a cheerful smile and, in a weak yet affectionate voice, asked,
So, my son, how was your night? Did you get a little kiss?
The lady laughed playfully, just like a curious mother, but the billionaire was caught off guard.
Mother!
He exclaimed, surprised by the boldness of her question. Soon after, however, he relaxed and admitted, a bit embarrassed, that he had actually enjoyed the night. He revealed that he had met a friendly woman, though nothing had happened beyond conversation. Mrs. Constance squeezed her son's hand and replied with tenderness,
But what matters is that you took the first step, my son. Soon enough you'll be married again, happy, and that brings me such relief. You can't imagine how much.
Her words were like a balm, but they also sparked in Mark a thought that had been echoing in his mind since the night before. For the first time in years, he had felt something different, a spark of life, even without knowing the cruel plan being plotted against him. Taking a deep breath, he confessed,
I thought a lot last night, Mother, and I decided I want to start a relationship soon. But I don't think I have the patience anymore for dates, for all that small talk.
The old lady studied him carefully, realizing he was about to reveal an idea.
I've decided to create a test to find my future wife. Aren't there all those dating reality shows on TV? Well, I'll make my own.
Mrs. Constance widened her eyes in surprise, then smiled mischievously. She knew her son well, always creative, always unconventional. Mark never did things the ordinary way, and perhaps that was exactly why he had managed to build a company from scratch and turn it into one of the largest in the country. Now, even in choosing a new wife, he wanted to stand out. The billionaire explained further.
I know I have my flaws, but also my strengths. I think if I create a test, some women might apply to be my wife. I can make a selection, and the one who adapts best to my lifestyle will be the chosen one.
Mrs. Constance chuckled, proud of her son's boldness, and replied,
My son, if you believe that's how you'll find the perfect wife, then I support you. Now tell me more. I want to know everything about this contest.
And so, in that hospital room, the two spent long minutes talking and laughing. Between confidences and plans, Mark felt lighter, as if, for the first time in years, he had found a new purpose. Later, when he arrived at the company, Mark followed his usual ritual, walking through the hallways, greeting employees and executives. But there was something different about him. His smile was more evident, radiating an uncommon energy. At the entrance, Madeline noticed immediately. Seeing her boss pass by, she was surprised by his more cheerful expression, so different from his usual serious and distant demeanor. Mark headed straight to his office. A few minutes later, the door opened and William entered, watching him with curiosity.
I like that smile, man.
The CEO commented. The businessman replied sincerely,
You know, I think you're right. It really is time for me to find a new love.
Before the billionaire could explain the idea that was buzzing in his mind, William jumped in, cutting him off quickly.
I knew it! I bet you liked that woman from last night, Ruth! Look, I think fate is on your side.
And almost as if rehearsed, a female voice chimed in behind him. Ruth walked into the office with a calculated smile.
Good morning. What a coincidence, right? Can you believe I had applied for an internship? And when I showed up, I found out it was at your company. The world is so small.
A lie, of course. The whole act had been staged by William, who made sure to add fuel.
Or maybe it's destiny.
He said with a sly grin. Ruth followed up, her tone seductive.
Actually, I was just thinking, maybe we could all have lunch together, continue yesterday's great conversation.
The CEO pretended to reflect, but then set the stage.
Sounds like a great idea. But maybe the two of you will have to lunch without me. I've got an important meeting.
The move was obvious. He was pushing his sister directly toward the billionaire. Mark, however, felt something off. The information was coming too fast. Everything sounded artificial. Polite as always, he answered,
Well, first of all, welcome to the company, Ruth. It'll be a pleasure to have you here. Now, about lunch. Unfortunately, I won't be able to today. I have an important commitment, but we can certainly set something up in the coming days.
He paused briefly, then looked firmly at her and added,
Now, if you'll excuse me, I need a word with William. Once again, welcome aboard.
Ruth's smile froze for a moment. Inside, she was boiling with rage, but she kept up appearances. With a false air of gratitude, she replied,
Thank you very much.
She turned and left the office with her head held high. But once in the hallway, she let her fury slip out in a harsh whisper.
How could that fool turn down lunch with me? Oh, but he'll see. He'll crawl at my feet yet. Or my name isn't Ruth.
Inside the office, William closed the door and turned to his boss, feigning indignation.
Mark, why did you dismiss her like that? You're wasting a chance from destiny. I thought you liked her last night, that you enjoyed the conversation. Maybe your true love is right here in front of you, and you're throwing away your chance at happiness.
The businessman then looked closely at the one he still believed to be his friend, trying to explain his reasoning.
That's not it. Yes, I liked her. And honestly, I was surprised by this whole coincidence. But since yesterday, I've had an idea. And to sum it up, I'm not going to choose my future wife in the traditional way.
William's eyes widened in disbelief. His expression grew confused, almost suspicious.
What do you mean you won't choose in the traditional way? What are you talking about?
Mark leaned back in his chair, a faint smile on his lips, and for the first time in a long while, he looked excited.
William, I'm already 40, and I don't have children yet. I can't afford to make a mistake in this choice. If I'm going to marry, it has to be the ideal wife. I thought a lot about this last night. I do want to love and be loved, but by the right person.
William took a deep breath, trying to remain calm, but inside, he was panicking. Forcing a smile, he pressed,
And how will you know who the right person is?
The billionaire answered without hesitation, his voice firm and filled with conviction.
Through a test, or a contest, if you'd rather call it that. I'm going to create a test to find the perfect wife. I'm sure this is the best way to find my true love.
The revelation made William swallow hard. This completely disrupted his plan of throwing Ruth straight into Mark's arms. He tried to argue, tried to insist that Mark should quickly accept Ruth's invitation. But the billionaire stood firm. His decision was made.
I'm not going to change my mind, William. And I truly thank you for taking me to that party, for making me open my eyes to life. But I need to choose my wife my way. If Ruth is really interested, then she can join the contest. Maybe our destinies will cross, but I will not change my decision. I will choose a new wife, only the one who passes my test.
Realizing there was no convincing his boss, William swallowed his anger and put on his mask of loyalty.
All right, if that's what you want, that's how it will be, Mark. I'm on your side, as I've always been. What do you need me to do? How will this test work? I want to help with everything.
The billionaire kept his enigmatic smile as if holding back secrets.
All you need to know for now is that I want the company's ballroom full next Saturday. Send invitations to single women. I'm sure you'll manage that. Whoever shows up will participate in the test.
The CEO nodded quickly, though displeased.
Of course. As you wish.
He then left the office, but as soon as he closed the door behind him, he rushed to tell his sister the news. Ruth heard the revelation and, furious, nearly shouted,
What? He's going to hold a contest to choose the perfect wife? That can't happen. I have to be Mark's wife. Those billions are mine.
William tried to calm her, keeping his voice cold and calculated.
Relax, sis. Don't worry. At first, I thought it was a problem, too. But thinking about it, maybe this way we'll have an even greater chance of making you his wife.
Ruth was still fuming, pacing back and forth, her hands trembling with nerves.
Greater chance? How, William? Are you insane? I know I'm pretty. I know I still turn heads, but I'm 35 already. What if a younger, fresher girl shows up? Of course he'll pick her over me.
The CEO took a deep breath before replying, locking eyes with her to transmit conviction.
You don't get it. Mark isn't that type of man. He's old-fashioned, uptight as hell. He doesn't care that much about looks. What matters to him are character, values, and qualities. That's how he'll choose his wife. And you know what I'll do? I'll fill the ballroom with shallow, materialistic women without values. All easy competitors. Meanwhile, I'll figure out exactly what criteria he plans to use. And you, sis, will be fully prepped by me. You'll act exactly as he expects. And when that happens, he'll fall for you completely. You'll become the billionaire's wife. And after that, the fortune will be ours.
Ruth listened to every word carefully. The rage on her face gradually turned into a confident smile. Slowly, her eyes lit up with determination.
You're a genius, William. A genius.
She declared with a sly grin. Excited, the CEO rushed to start preparations. He would set up the ballroom for Saturday and handpick the most unfit candidates possible to make sure his sister shone in front of Mark. Meanwhile, on another floor of the massive building, Madeleine carried on with her cleaning routine. She hummed softly while scrubbing the floor, happy to finally have a steady job. Still, her heart skipped a beat when she heard her supervisor calling her name. It was Mrs. Eponina, head of the cleaning staff. The young woman swallowed hard. Fear clouded her thoughts. Had yesterday's coffee incident been reported? Was she about to be fired? With trembling steps, she approached her boss. But to her surprise, the news had nothing to do with dismissal. Mrs. Eponina explained,
When I hired you, you said you really needed the money. Well, an extra shift just came up for this Saturday. I was just informed there will be an event in the building's ballroom. Can I count on you to work that day as well? The company usually pays well for these events.
An immediate sense of relief washed over Madeleine. Her anxiety melted away, replaced by a grateful smile.
Of course, Mrs. Eponina. Absolutely. That money will help me a lot. Thank you for thinking of me.
The humble cleaner could never have imagined that the event on Saturday would change the course of her life forever. But before we continue and find out what test billionaire Mark is planning and how Madeleine will end up in this story, go ahead and click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. That's the only way YouTube will let you know whenever a new video comes out. In your opinion, is marriage necessary to be happy? Or can someone be happy living alone? Tell me in the comments, and let me know which city you're watching from. I'll pin your comment with a beautiful heart. Now back to our story. Saturday had finally arrived. Mark was anxious, his heart racing, ready to put into action the test he had been planning. Before heading to the company, he stopped once more at the hospital to visit Mrs. Constance. He spoke with his mother, explaining in detail the plan he had created to find the perfect wife. The lady, though frail, listened to every word with affection, silently rooting for her son to finally be happy. Meanwhile, William was holding his phone, showing his sister a series of photos. Each image displayed one of the candidates who would take part in the event. His tone was full of false confidence.
Look at these women, Ruth. Of course you stand out among them. You've already won, Ruth. You've already won.
The blonde, however, nervously bit her nails. Anxiety consumed her, and her voice came out trembling.
I hope so. But you still haven't found out anything about this so-called test. How am I supposed to have an advantage if I don't even know what he's going to ask for?
William raised his hand, trying to calm her.
Relax, relax. I'm going to see Mark in a bit. He said he'd tell me today what the test will be. It's all going to work out, trust me. There's no way you can lose.
In the company's ballroom, Madeleine was already working. She had a cloth in her hand and a bucket by her side, scrubbing the floor with dedication. Her eyes, however, couldn't help but admire the luxurious space. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, heavy curtains framed the windows, and elegant floral arrangements were spread across every corner. The young woman sighed, murmuring to herself,
Looks like there's going to be a big party here.
Mrs. Eponina, head of the cleaning staff, walked past her and gave firm instructions.
Once you finish cleaning the floor, go stand quietly in the corner of the ballroom. During the event, if you see a glass fall, a drink spill, crumbs on the floor, anything at all, you rush and clean it immediately. Everything needs to be spotless. I found out this event is for the company's owner, Mr. Mark, so you cannot make a mistake.
Yes, ma'am.
Madeleine answered at once without hesitation. Little by little, the women began to arrive, There were dozens of them, most dressed in revealing, flashy outfits, eager to show off their assets in hopes of winning the powerful billionaire's heart. Ruth, on the other hand, though she usually preferred provocative clothes, had opted for something more modest. She had followed her brother's advice, who knew exactly what kind of woman Mark valued. Madeline watched everything in silence, leaning discreetly against one of the columns. She didn't really understand what was going to happen there. Her mind began to wander.
What's with all these women? Could it be that the boss is some kind of womanizer, and this is going to turn into a...
She cut herself off, shaking her head.
Better not to think anything. I'd better just stay quiet in my corner.
Time was ticking, and only a few minutes remained before the event began. Still not understanding the plan fully, William approached Mark, trying to pry information from him, his tone anxious.
Mark, are you really not going to tell me how you're going to choose your new wife from all these women?
The billionaire smiled mysteriously.
Patience. Soon you'll know. What I can tell you is that today will be just one part of the test. Only the announcement. The real test will last for several weeks.
Those words made William breathe a sigh of relief. A prolonged test meant time. Time enough to manipulate, cheat, and make sure his sister stood out above all the others. He immediately texted Ruth, who was waiting inside the ballroom. Upon reading it, the blonde flashed a confident smile.
Several weeks. Then it's already in the bag.
In a reserved room, Mark stood up, adjusting his suit jacket. Then he walked to a corner and picked up a heavy white sack that looked filled with grains. William frowned, curious.
And what's with that sack? What's it for?
Mark smiled again, steady.
You'll see soon enough. But I can tell you this. Inside here lies the test, my friend. This is how I'll choose my wife.
Intrigued, William didn't push further. He decided to wait, curious and at the same time, worried about what was to come. The ballroom was packed. Mark entered and was surprised at the number of women awaiting him. All of them watched with eyes gleaming with interest, some even overly exaggerated in their stares. He also noticed the bold outfits of most, which didn't match the style he appreciated. He thought to himself,
Clothes mean nothing. What matters is the heart.
From the back, Madeline recognized him. Her eyes widened.
So he's the owner of the company?
A shy smile appeared on her face, but quickly faded when she noticed William nearby as well. Mark walked a few more steps, scanning the room. He spotted in a corner the humble cleaner he had met days earlier. His eyes lingered on her for a moment, but then quickly shifted to Ruth, who was smiling broadly at him, trying to catch his attention. Then, the billionaire took the microphone in his hand. His voice echoed firmly through the ballroom.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to have all of you here tonight. Honestly, I never imagined so many wonderful women would be interested in me. I'm truly honored.
He paused, took a deep breath, and continued. He shared a little of his story, about the years he had spent alone after his wife's death and the loneliness he carried.
I'm tired of being alone. I want to find someone to share my future with. I'm not very good with dates, so I decided to create this test.
As he spoke, he gestured with his hand, calling William. The CEO stepped forward and received the white sack from his boss. He felt the weight and looked at it suspiciously. That's when Mark opened the sack and, before the curious eyes of all the women present, pulled out a handful of seeds. The entire ballroom murmured in confusion. Even Ruth, skilled at faking composure, couldn't hide her surprise. What exactly was the billionaire planning? Mark then lifted the small seed before everyone's eyes. His voice was calm, yet filled with emotion.
My mother has always loved plants, and with her, I've planted many trees, many flowers. I still remember, as if it were yesterday, the first time she told me that relationships are like a seed. They need to be planted, cared for, cultivated. Only then do they bloom. Only then do they bear fruit.
The ballroom, which seconds earlier had been murmuring in anticipation, fell silent. The image of that powerful man holding something as simple as a seed intrigued everyone. Madeline, standing quietly in the corner with her cleaning rag in hand, watched in awe. Every word from Mark touched her heart as if it were spoken directly to her. Ruth, meanwhile, stood beside William, frowning in confusion. Other women glanced at each other, equally puzzled, unsure where this was leading. The businessman continued, his voice resonating through the hall.
And that is why these seeds will be my test to find a new wife. What I value in a relationship is building, nurturing. I believe that whoever knows how to care for a seed, making it grow into a living plant, blossom, and even bear fruit, will also know how to care for a relationship. Because that takes time, dedication, patience.
The woman's eyes grew even more curious. The billionaire then explained in detail, those who wished to participate would have to plant the seed, care for it, water it, watch it grow, and in 2 months, they would return with the plant.
The woman who brings me the most beautiful plant will be my new wife.
An immediate buzz spread through the room. The guests whispered among themselves, some laughing, others outraged. Ruth, in particular, couldn't hide her irritation.
The most beautiful plant. He must be joking. Is this really a way to choose a wife?
William tried to intervene, forcing his voice to sound concerned.
Mark, my friend, don't you think you should reconsider this idea? How can a plant define your future wife? You should talk with these women, see who truly fits your profile.
But the billionaire didn't hesitate. His eyes shone with conviction, and his response was sharp.
I've already made my decision, William. No one will change my mind.
He then turned back to the women and declared loudly,
Those who wish to participate may step forward and take your seeds.
One by one, the candidates approached him. Each step was accompanied by seductive glances, forced smiles, rehearsed gestures. They wanted to impress the billionaire not only through the seed, but with their charm. When it was Ruth's turn, despite her irritation, she put on her mask of falsehood and said with a calculated smile,
You know I love plants. My life has always been in contact with nature. You can be sure I'll grow the most beautiful plant and bring it back in 2 months, proving I'm the right choice.
Mark only nodded politely, showing no emotion. After all had received their seeds, only one figure remained still in the ballroom. Madeleine. She stood quietly, leaning in her corner, simply watching. As he passed by her, Ruth seized the chance to spit venom. With a look of disdain, she muttered,
When I become the lady of all this, I'll never keep someone around who just stands there doing nothing. Things will change.
Madeleine lowered her head, saying nothing, swallowing the humiliation in silence. William, meanwhile, kept shaking his head, still unwilling to accept Mark's decision.
I still think this is madness, Mark.
But the billionaire, resolute, answered while looking directly at him and then at the hall.
I assure you, it's not. You'll see.
It was then that something caught his attention. At the bottom of the sack of seeds, there was just one left. A single forgotten seed, just as Madeleine remained alone in her corner. Without thinking much, Mark reached in, took the solitary seed, and began walking toward the maid. Madeleine's heart raced. With every step he took in her direction, her palms grew sweaty, her breath unsteady. From the very first day she met him, she had been charmed by his kindness. And now, he was standing right in front of her.
I noticed you've been standing there quietly the whole time.
Mark said, his tone calm, yet curious. William was right beside him, watchful, trying to decipher what his friend was about to do. Madeleine gave a timid smile.
I was just waiting for everyone to leave so I could start cleaning. But I'll get on it now.
She paused, took a deep breath, and added,
But I really liked your test. I hope you find the wife you're looking for. You seem like a good man.
Mark looked into her eyes. Without planning it, as if it were just a spontaneous gesture or a playful whim, he stretched out his hand, offering her the last seed. Madeleine's eyes widened in shock. Time seemed to stop as she realized what that meant.
You're inviting me to take part in the test too?
She asked, incredulous. Before Mark could respond, William jumped in hurriedly.
Of course not! Mark is just joking. Get back to your work.
But the billionaire kept his hand extended, his gaze steady on Madeleine.
Actually, if you want to participate, you can. I said any woman here tonight who was interested in me could join the test.
William's eyes widened, indignant at his boss's boldness. Madeleine, on the other hand, felt uneasy. Her heart pounded even harder. She looked at Mark for a long moment. He was the kind of man who could enchant any woman, kind, polite, chivalrous. His warm smile radiated trust. And more than that, he was the owner of that empire, a man who had built everything with his own merit. She swallowed hard, gathered all her courage, and with a trembling voice whispered,
I accept.
She held the seed delicately, as if holding a treasure, feeling the weight of that gesture change her life forever. The billionaire smiled discreetly and stepped away from Madeleine, leaving her heart still pounding in her chest. William, however, wasted no time. He hurried after him, his face full of indignation.
Mark, you're not thinking straight. That woman is a maid. She's not on your level. She's not fit to be your wife.
The billionaire stopped, looked firmly at the man he believed to be his friend, and answered with conviction.
Who is fit to be my wife or not? I'll discover that when the test ends. As I said, it doesn't matter social class, hair color, age, or body type. I will marry the one who brings me the most beautiful plant.
With no arguments left, William only nodded, pretending to accept. But inside, he was boiling with rage. He let Mark go on to visit his mother at the hospital, while he rushed to tell Ruth what had happened. When he found her alone, the blonde was already fuming with anger.
What a ridiculous test. Growing a plant? This has to be a joke.
William sighed and replied,
I think so too. I don't think Mark is in his right mind. And what's worse, after you and the other women left, he even gave a seed to the maid.
Ruth raised her eyebrows, but soon her fury turned into determination.
You know what? It doesn't matter. I'll find a way to win this contest. A beautiful plant is what he wants. Then I'll grow the biggest, most gorgeous plant of them all. He'll be dazzled and beg me on his knees to marry him. And after that, I'll have him declared insane, throw him into an asylum, and we'll take all the money.
She laughed wickedly, and William joined her. In the days that followed, the two began investing heavily. They built a sophisticated greenhouse at Ruth's house, hired professional help, and bought the best fertilizers. Everything to ensure the blonde had the most impressive plan at the end of the test. Meanwhile, Madeleine was still stunned by what had happened. She couldn't believe she had been included in the test. She held the seed as if holding a piece of hope. And in her simplicity, she began to dream. She imagined herself at Mark's side, married, building a family, living happy moments. Her heart wasn't after the billionaire's fortune, but the man he was. Long before she had even met him in person, she had already heard stories of his kindness, his integrity. Sitting in her modest home, she looked at the small seed and whispered,
I'm going to make you grow into a beautiful little plant. I'll take care of you with all my love. And maybe that's how I'll find my love too.
That very day, she planted the seed in a simple pot. With the little money she had, she bought a small bag of soil and fertilizer. She followed every step with care, placing the earth, watering it gently, positioning the pot where she thought it would get the most sun.
Soon you'll sprout,
she said, every time she approached the pot, full of hope. But something strange happened. No matter how hard she tried, the seed wouldn't sprout. Madeleine's yard was simple, but she knew the art of planting well. She was used to growing flowers, vegetables, even fruit trees. She always succeeded, but this seed seemed lifeless.
What's happening?
She murmured, worried, as she placed the pot in the sun, watered it, added fertilizer. Nothing. Not a single sprout came up from the soil. Days passed and her hope began to fade. 2 weeks after the event, fate put her face to face with William and Ruth at the company. They were walking side by side, and when they saw her, the CEO flashed a fake smile, ready to mock.
So, Madeleine, how's your plant? Growing fast?
He teased. The maid, sincere as always, replied,
Well, not very fast. It hasn't sprouted yet. But I'm sure it will soon.
William's mocking laughter echoed through the hallways, joined by Ruth's cruel glare. The blonde, merciless, added,
You're just wasting your time. Want the truth? Mark would never marry a filthy maid like you. Even the earth knows it. That's why your seed won't sprout. Give up! Mine is already full of green leaves.
She laughed, mocking her rival's simplicity. William reinforced the blow with even crueler words.
Your place is cleaning up after the upper class. I don't know what Mark was thinking when he included you in this. Go on, go clean my office bathroom. That's what you were born for. Scrubbing dirty toilets.
Madeline lowered her head. Her heart ached, but she said nothing. She swallowed the humiliation in silence and returned to her work. As the weeks passed, her disappointment only grew. The pot remained the same, just soil, nothing else. She watered, fertilized, prayed, but there was no sign of life. Meanwhile, Ruth paraded around the company full of confidence. Whenever she met Mark, she made a point of mentioning her plant.
My plant is so beautiful. You need to see it. You'll love it when I bring it on the results day,
She said, smiling as if she were already the winner. 2 months went by. The deadline had arrived. Mark was anxious, but also apprehensive. His mother was getting weaker by the day, and he knew her time was short. His greatest wish was to see her happy, knowing her son had finally found someone to love. That day, before leaving, he held Mrs. Constance's fragile hand and said,
Today's the big day, Mother. I hope I'll be able to find you a daughter-in-law.
The elderly woman, her eyes misty with love, smiled softly.
I'm sure you will, my son.
And just like the first time, Mark gathered all the women in the company's ballroom. But this time, it wouldn't just be an announcement. It would be to choose his future wife. Madeleine, however, hadn't been assigned to work that day. She was at home, sitting in front of the pot that had never sprouted. Her eyes were misty, her expression downcast. Inside that simple container was nothing but dry soil, no leaf, no sprout.
How can I possibly show this?
She murmured, her voice choked. She took a deep breath and said to herself bitterly,
The best thing to do is not go to the company. If I show up, I'll just embarrass myself. What was I thinking when I accepted to be a candidate for Mr. Mark's wife? This seed not sprouting is proof that I was born to be nothing more than a maid, nothing else.
With her heart heavy, she threw herself onto the bed, trying to forget about the event. But as she lay there, a memory struck her. Mark's gentle smile as he handed her the seed. She also remembered her late mother's words, who always said never to leave a task unfinished. And this, painful as it was still an unfinished task. She breathed deeply, wiped her tears, and whispered,
I have to go. I have to at least show that I tried.
And so, even knowing the humiliation awaiting her, she picked up the empty pot and headed to the company. When she arrived at the ballroom, she was stunned by the spectacle of colors and fragrances. The women looked dazzling in elegant dresses and flawless makeup. But what impressed the most were the plants. There were vibrant red roses in pots decorated with golden ribbons, white lilies releasing a soft perfume, delicate violets, proud sunflowers stretching toward the ceiling as if chasing the sun. Some had brought small jacarandas in ornate vases, others displayed lush ferns cascading down in waves. With every plant presented, the ballroom seemed to transform into a true enchanted garden. Madeline shrank into a corner, hugging her empty pot to her chest. She was the only one with nothing to show but a handful of soil. All eyes turned toward her, and mocking laughter echoed through the room. That was when Ruth appeared. She walked with firm steps, holding a vase in her hands. Inside it was a rare blue orchid, its petals glowing under the lights of the hall, vibrant and extraordinary. The plant seemed almost magical, imposing, a spectacle in itself. The blonde lifted her chin and declared arrogantly,
Make way. The new Mrs. Mark is coming through.
The women parted and she continued with disdain.
If you want to leave, you can. I'm going to win anyway. My plant is the most beautiful of them all.
William watched the scene with satisfaction. He smiled as he admired his sister holding the orchid. To him, There was no doubt. No other plant came close to its perfection. Then, noticing Madeline in the corner, Ruth burst into loud laughter, drawing everyone's attention.
That's your plant. Where is it?
William stepped closer, laughing too.
I told you you were only good for cleaning bathrooms, but you didn't listen.
Madeline's eyes filled with tears. Before she could react, Ruth lunged forward and, without hesitation, shoved the pot from her hands. The container crashed to the floor and shattered, scattering soil across the spotless tiles. The blonde leaned over her rival and spat her words like venom.
Now do the only thing you know how to do. Clean this mess up. And know this. This will be the last mess you ever clean in this company. I don't like seeing you trying to steal my future husband, you filthy pig.
Madeline fell to her knees, weeping softly as she tried to gather the broken pieces. At that moment, the doors opened. Mark walked in. His eyes widened at the sight of the ballroom transformed into a true garden. He moved among the vases, admiring each plant, impressed by the care some women had put into them. William rushed to him, eager to influence his decision.
See, Mark? Look at all these wonderful plants, but the most beautiful one is Ruth's. I always knew she was the right woman for you. Just look at that stunning blue orchid.
But Mark seemed to be looking for something beyond beauty. He walked up to Ruth, who smiled triumphantly.
Do you like the blue orchid? Gorgeous, isn't it? I told you I'd surprise you. I'm the perfect wife for you. I'll take care of you just like I took care of this beautiful orchid.
But to her shock, the billionaire didn't even answer. He simply walked past her, his eyes fixed on another scene. In the corner, kneeling on the floor, was Madeline. Through tears, she cleaned the mess, gathering the pieces of the broken pot. He approached her, his voice gentle.
What happened? Where's your plant?
Madeline lifted her tear-filled eyes and replied between sobs.
I'm sorry. I really liked you, but my seed never sprouted. I tried everything, really, but I couldn't make it grow. I'm sorry. I'll clean this up and leave.
Ruth didn't waste a second and interrupted mockingly.
And on top of everything, she had the nerve to bring a pot with nothing but dirt and spill it all over the floor. My love, when we're married, we'll fire this useless girl. Now go on. Tell everyone I'm your new wife. Tell them I've won.
The entire ballroom waited for his decision. The women whispered, many already convinced Ruth would be chosen. But then Mark shocked them all. He knelt down before Madeline. His eyes locked onto hers and his voice came out firm, brimming with emotion.
Marry me. Marry me, please.
As he said it, he pulled a ring from his pocket and offered it to the humble maid, leaving the entire ballroom in utter disbelief. The eyes in the room were wide, mouths agape. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. The billionaire before all those women kneeling and proposing to the humble maid. Ruth was the first to react. She turned to Mark, her face consumed by fury and disbelief.
What do you mean proposing to that filthy woman? You're supposed to propose to me. I was the winner. Everyone can see that.
William joined his sister's outburst, raising his voice.
That's right, Mark! It was Ruth who brought the most beautiful plant. That woman there, that maid, came here only to make a mess. She couldn't even get her seed to sprout.
Madeline remained silent, still in shock. She couldn't make sense of it, her heart pounding, unable to process the moment. Mark, however, calmly turned to Ruth and asked,
Ruth, forgive me for asking, but do you know how long it takes for an orchid to bloom?
The blonde stammered, her voice faltering.
I don't know. I planted it, and it grew. It bloomed beautifully like this.
The billionaire kept his gaze firm as he continued.
And do you know how a blue orchid is made?
Once again, Ruth was caught off guard. She choked on her words, cornered.
I don't know.
Mark drew a deep breath and then raised his voice so everyone in the hall could hear.
An orchid takes at least 3 years to bloom. And besides that, blue orchids don't exist in nature. They are artificially created.
A murmur swept across the room. The women looked at each other in shock while Ruth's face burned with humiliation before them all. The billionaire then looked around. His eyes scanned every vase, every plant displayed with pride, and he continued.
And more, the seeds I gave out were scorched seeds. No plant was ever meant to grow from them. Every woman who brought something here today cheated. And even if they had been healthy seeds, they could never have produced such varied results. They were all the same, and none would have bloomed into these different species I see here.
A heavy silence fell over the hall. The women lowered their heads in shame while Madeleine, still kneeling on the floor, began wiping her tears. At last, she understood the truth. Mark pointed at her, his voice firm, echoing like a judgment.
What I value most in life is truth, and only truth. And she, Madeleine, was the only one who planted the tree of honesty.
Then, locking eyes with the maid, he said tenderly,
And that's why I want you as my wife. If you'll have me, of course.
Madeleine's heart nearly leapt from her chest. Tears returned, but this time, they were tears of joy. She smiled through trembling lips and replied,
Of course I will.
The two embraced in the middle of the ballroom. The gesture was sincere, intense, full of meaning. But Ruth refused to accept defeat. She threw a fit, screaming at the top of her lungs.
This is ridiculous. It makes no sense. You're insane, Mark.
The billionaire remained calm, but his voice was firm as steel.
It makes perfect sense, Ruth. I've already made my choice, and the rest of you may leave.
The blonde felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. Then, distraught, she turned on her brother, screaming,
You promised me, William. You said I'd marry him. You said you'd help me win Mark over, that you'd put me in his life. And now I've lost everything. You lied to me.
The entire audience turned, bewildered, as she, hysterical, continued exposing the truth. William tried to contain her,
Shut up, Ruth! This isn't the time to say that.
but it was too late. The damage was done. Mark stared at them, stunned, realizing in that instant he had been the target of a gold digger's plot. His expression hardened. The voice that had been tender now rang with authority.
I want you out of here immediately, William. Get out of my company.
The CEO's eyes widened. He tried to step closer, pleading.
Mark, please, forgive me. I made mistakes, but I've always been by your side. Always took care of the company.
But the billionaire was relentless.
Begging won't help. You betrayed me, not just as a friend, but as an employee. You're fired, and I never want to see you here again.
William's fate was sealed. Later, upon investigating the company's accounts, Mark discovered that the former CEO had been embezzling money for years. Justice was served. William ended up in prison. Ruth, on the other hand, saw her castle of illusions crumble. Without a career, without a husband, without money, without her brother to support her, all she had left was loneliness. Madeleine and Mark, after the unusual test, truly began to know each other. What had begun as a simple trial of patience turned into a deep and genuine love. Mrs. Constance, already frail, lived to see her son smile again, this time beside the woman he had chosen with his heart. She felt at peace, witnessing the start of a new family. Not long after, she passed away serenely, certain her son would not be alone. Mark grieved deeply for his mother's loss. He cried, felt hollow, but found in Madeleine the strength to move forward. At her side, he rebuilt his life, had children, and discovered that happiness could bloom in the most unlikely places. In the end, truth triumphed, and so did love. Mark proved that sometimes the right person comes from where you least expect. And so, at Madeleine's side, he found what he had long been searching for: a love pure, simple, and true. Comment, true love. So I'll know you made it to the end of this video, and I'll mark your comment with a beautiful heart. And if you enjoyed the story of the maid Madeleine and the powerful Mark, I'm sure the next video, appearing on your screen right now, will move you as well. Big kiss, and see you in the next emotional story.